Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TSMU Q&A series. I'm your host, Wheels. I currently do production here at TSM and also part of the content team. Today, I am joined by the one and only Joe Marine, who is our mobile team manager at TSM FTX. You have had so many titles, I just had to remember which one you are now, by the way.
Yeah, that's fair. I've done a couple of different things here. But right now, I mean, I don't even have like a super strict title right now, honestly. Like
Yeah.
mobile manager is more than fine. Um, yeah, I started out as well, I guess, yeah, hi, I'm Joe. I started out as just like a normal team manager. I managed Fortnite and our PUBG mobile team in India. And now I just do mobile stuff, although not really because I also do sim racing, but mostly mobile.
You
Uh,
just do it all.
yeah, I mean that's what they tell me, but there's also a lot of stuff I don't do, like everything that I didn't say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
I do things that I do, and I don't do things that I don't.
That's true. All right. Well, before we get into these questions, for this Q&A, we'll be pulling some questions from the TSMU Discord. So if you have your question, feel free to join at discord.gg/TSMU and type in the Ask Stream questions here, where you can either be selected for voice or text, either or. While people get their questions in, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself that I don't already know?
So I'm from LA. I went to college in GW, and I studied history. So you don't have to. I studied history with a minor in Arabic. So you don't have to do anything esports related to work in esports. Although the industry could use more endemic people. So that's maybe not the best advice. Um, I was a teacher for a while. I taught U.S. history and Arabic. Um, and then I worked on political campaigns. I worked on a presidential campaign, but I guess I won't say which one because I don't know. I also worked in law for a while. I worked on a couple of law firms in DC. So eventually I said, let's just try esports. So then I did. My first job was with Fnatic in London.
All right. Let's stop you
I
right there. How did you get that job? Because that's
Yeah,
Fnatic.
good question. There was an internship, like an open internship that I just applied to, and I just reached out and was like, "Hey, yeah." Had zero finance experience, but I got the internship anyway, so that was cool. Well, that's not true. I was a finance intern on the political. I worked in finance on the campaign network. So maybe that's what. But
Okay.
yeah. And yeah, I got that. I flew out. They flew me out to London, and I worked on that. Um, and then from there, I worked there for about like 6, 8 months, and then I transitioned to being a player manager for
Okay.
Clash Royale in NA. Um, because they were like, "Hey, we need someone from NA," and I was like, "Hey, I'm from NA." And yeah, after that, eventually I transitioned, or I left Fnatic and joined TSM, who brought me on to be a player manager, and now I am where I am, pretty much. My roles evolved a lot from just like managing directly players to there are some players I work with directly, but now I much more so manage managers.
Okay.
Um, I'm second in the mobile department, and I also help work on title expansion, which is a huge process.
Mm-hmm.
This involves doing market research and looking into different titles, industries, influencers, different markets. It's a pretty big process. I also do a lot on the operational side, making sure that things like pay flow and any other like logistical operations are properly executed. Because at the end of the day, like I strongly believe that even things that seem the most minute in esports are incredibly important. I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell you how many times I've had players be just incredibly happy by the sheer fact that they're getting paid on time.
That's true.
Uh,
Very, very true.
yeah, it's a really big deal. I truly don't think there's a single unimportant role or job to be done in esports. Um, so I think that if there's like a specific passion you have that might overlap with esports, I think it's really important to pursue that
Mm-hmm.
because there's always something useful you can do, and even things that might seem unimportant or irrelevant are incredibly important. And a lot of players complain and are really complain about lacking in things like proper pay flow. And when you come to an org like TSM and they find that things do tend to operate significantly more smoothly, then there's a lot of happiness there. And I think that's partly why a lot of big orgs earn their names. It's not just because you are a big named org, but it's also just because you can do things maybe like a little more properly, or you have some standard operating procedures. SOP, for those of you who like initialisms, it's not an acronym, it's an initialism. That I lost my train of thought. That's why they are big, just because you can do some things correctly. So from like the most important thing to the little thing, people are always important.
Yeah, that is true. Well, let's just go ahead and this kind of transitions into our first question from Beard. What is your favorite part of your job?
The best part of my job is seeing players play. Is the best thing, and seeing them win, and connecting with them in general. It's a huge deal when I get to work on scouting with players, or beginning any project, but it's specifically players, and seeing that come to fruition. It's a really big process from just watching them through the screen and scouting them to talking with your coworkers about them and kind of forming a plan or strategy, to talking with them, negotiating, and then eventually signing and announcing them. And the first time you see them play with their TSM jerseys, being called TSM and seeing them succeed, it feels like everything is coming to fruition. I think the most impactful moment for me recently was when we announced our Wild Rift team.
Okay, yeah.
There was a video of one of our players' dad posted. And since I work mostly in mobile, specifically our mobile is much more active internationally. We've really tried to expand globally. And I had one player who was from a lower income town in Brazil, and he had apparently spoken with his dad a lot about it being his dream to play for TSM. And he hadn't told us this when we were signing him, but I love hearing stories like that. And the dad posted a video of him crying because his son finally got signed and got to like realize his dream. So that was a really great moment for me, because you're able to make someone's dream come true. And I mean, that's like one of the best things in the world.
Yeah. Well, from that, would that be your favorite memory, or is there another memory that would come to mind?
I mean, that's probably that. I mean, that was a pretty amazing moment. I was really happy about that. I'm trying to think. I mean, yeah, I think that probably was like one of those impactful moments for me.
Yeah.
Particularly for me, because I'm also someone who's like into like, as hobbies, I'm really into things like history, and like politics as well. So I kind of look at like what kind of impact different individual people can have. And it's really nice to see that something you do can have a positive impact. I don't think like a lot of people get to say that, but I'm really, really happy that I could. And being able to, I mean, I think the bottom line is being able to make someone's dream come true. It's like an amazing, and being able to help like families out as well. Like there have been times where we've paid people a higher salary because we're aware of their family situation or something that's going on with them, and we want to make sure that like TSM is there for them and supports them. So I would say being able to like help and affect people individually is a really great thing.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the mobile's like new, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not really big in NA. It's only big really Brazil, India, China. It's huge in. So like these part of the world's, I don't want to say third world countries, but like they're not like as.
Yeah, the term third world country, fun fact, was actually created because first world was you were a capitalist country and aligned with NATO. "Quote unquote" second world was with the Warsaw Pact and you were a country aligned with the Soviet Union. And third world was just meant a country that was neither capitalist nor communist. Fun fact.
I mean, you are a history major, so you would know that fact. So, which, by the way, you go from history to finance to the political stuff, and then into Fnatic. Which, speaking of Fnatic, Galaxy has a question. How is the transition from a team in Fnatic based in EU coming to the NA team? How was the adjustment?
It wasn't that drastic. I would say the best thing was like being able to work locally with coworkers. Of course, COVID kind of had a hand in stopping that. But I mean, Fnatic's also a great org. There are a lot of like great people behind the scenes there, as was TSM. I personally was a TSM fan for a really long time, and I mean, you're a fan of the org you work on. But the first esports game I ever watched was TSM. It was the first game we played against Samsung White Season 4 Worlds. It was the game we won, so I was like, oh my god, like NA is amazing. Boy, was I in for a surprise. Regardless, though. That was like my first experience with it. Yeah. So that was a big moment for me. I'm not answering your question though. The biggest difference, I did such a different role in both that it's a little difficult. I think that in my experience, Fnatic was a lot more focused on things like influencers and entertainment. Mm-hmm. And so far, TSM has seemed more focused on competitive success. That's not to say Fnatic wasn't, but yeah. Towards the end of my time at Fnatic, I was working in LA, like I am now for TSM anyway. So there aren't a ton of differences. Obviously, living and working in Europe versus LA is just that comes with differences in and of itself. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think there were a ton of major differences other than my role changing, being given more responsibility and more sovereignty to like pursue what I wanted to do. But I think that if you're trying to apply for a job in esports and you get a job, even if it's not your favorite org or your quote unquote dream org, I would still take that job. Yeah. You're going to learn a lot, and at the end of the day, it's a really strong opportunity. London is also an amazing city, so I would highly, highly recommend that. I got to visit, like I have like English family, so I got to visit them, so that was super cool.
Well, I mean, speaking of, I mean, you're going from London to, you're going from basically, a T1 job over in Europe to come into back to NA, T1 org over here. I mean, I'm sure there's some lessons that you learned in Fnatic that you're still using to this day.
Yeah, definitely. One of the strangest moments for me for my job was when I was managing the Clash Royale team, and I decided to let go of a player who was like universally ranked like #1 of the world for that title. Because I mean, I don't want to say any drama, but like he wasn't helping to create a positive environment.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I was like made the call to like trade him essentially.
Yeah.
And having casters like comment on that, YouTube videos like power rankings for teams for this season. And I was like, I don't know what Fnatic's doing. We actually finished higher than we did the season before. But I'm sorry, what was the question? I've totally spaced out.
No, so there's so how you talked about taking lessons from one team and then transfer to another. So what are some of those lessons?
Yeah. I guess like the biggest lesson is just to like follow what you're passionate about. I'm not passionate about, I mean, actually I do a lot of finance stuff now, actually. So I hate math. But now I live in Excel a lot. I like redid our budgets really recently. So I've been living in Excel for a while. I guess it's just like keep pursuing what you want to pursue. I really knew I wanted to work on the player side of things, working with developers to expand in titles. Like I knew that this was kind of what I wanted to do in esports. So I kept working at that. The best part of working at a T1 organization is the resources they have, but even better than that is the knowledge and the staff that they also bring. You learn so much from people working around you. And like my higher ups at Fnatic taught me a lot. Their CGO, Chief Gaming Officer, Patrick, is great. I still talk with him sometimes. My direct boss at the time, whose name is Jan, who's now representing another esports team, I think called Rick's GG, was also really great. So just learning from them was really important. And I think being open to being told things I'm doing was wrong, and being open to learning new things, and now at TSM the same thing happens. So, I still because failure in life is very, very common, and you will fail at some points. Just life and make mistakes.
Yeah,
and now having oversight from people. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I didn't want to cut you off. It sounded like you were at the end of his sentence. So
I was, but with me, another sentence could start at anything. So
that is
cut me off.
I've learned that in the last 15 minutes of us doing this, but let's just go to another question. So this is about the COD mobile team.
Mhm.
OP Sidon asks, did you take part in picking up the COD mobile team? If so, what was the factors picking them up?
Yeah, so with COD Mobile, I didn't do the actual scouting for that. That was done by another person in mobile.
Mm-hmm.
My boss, Jeff Chow, who is also a great person who I've learned a lot from. He directly did the scouting for that team. I did onboard them and work and help on their announcement, everything like that. And we chose them because they were a really well performing team in COD Mobile
Mm-hmm.
who could compete with the likes of the best teams in the scene. And also just speaking with the guys, being able to talk with them, they were really down to earth, really positive, hardworking guys. A lot of them were going to college or still in high school. And again, being able to make a positive impact there was really cool. But we mostly chose them because they're really good at COD Mobile, and that was really important for us in signing a COD Mobile. Yeah,
Well, speaking of picking up teams, let's talk about that real quick. So
sure.
what would be the process of picking up a team? Like in a
Well, the
specific,
first,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I interrupt people.
No,
Ask
you're
my
good.
girlfriend; she'll tell you that is something I need to work on. And she's right. Um, so the first thing is understanding what game you want to get into, basically. And we made the decision to get into COD Mobile. Um, so you go through and you look at the top performing teams, pretty much. Another really important thing is just getting into contact with people in the area and talking with industry experts. I'm never going to pretend I know better than someone who like lives for and studies the game.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I'm managing players, like I don't disagree with the coach of the team because they spend their lives studying that game and
Mm-hmm.
I do not. So it's really important, I think, for any manager to never pretend that you know better than someone who lives and breathes the game. And part of my job is to find someone who I trust and then to trust them.
Yep.
So what's really important is you dig into a team, you look at how their performance is, what are the individual players, factors like social reach and how big they are on social media is also a factor. It's not always the most important thing, but you take it into consideration. Their personalities, do they have any drama surrounding them? What's their reputation? Is also somewhat important.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's talking with them and finding the team that perfectly fits what you're looking for. We found teams with players who had bigger socials but were worse performing, and we passed them up because TSM is about creating a culture of winning and positivity. Are
Mm-hmm.
two of the things I kind of focus on the most. I like making sure that if there's a team I'm signing, they're going to win, or they're going to fail but learn from their mistakes and eventually win, and that I'm going to be able to create a really positive culture within the team.
Yeah, I mean, even that. I mean, even we it feels like we have the luxury because we are TSM. We have like a lot of resources that a lot of these teams don't, and that's the thing is I think we invest a lot into these teams, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we do invest a lot into them. Whether it's time, which each team you announce is a lot of time. I mean, I think we announced like 4 mobile teams in a couple of months,
Yeah, you did.
and that was a really crazy time. So there's a financial investment you make. Obviously, that goes without saying, and it's relative per title. I call them titles instead of games, by the way, because that's just how they were always told to me. I think that's what they call them in Europe. So
Okay.
that's kind of what I picked up. So when I say title, I just mean game, but title sounds more formal. I don't know. Yeah, so it really per title, there's a different level of financial investment. There's also an investment on top of that if you're going into a new country. Yeah, I was talking about book titles actually. War. I can't think of a good joke, so I'm just going to be past that one actually.
It's fine.
Yeah, so like when we were initially investing into like India or Brazil, there's a higher investment there, not just with the team, but also the region itself.
Yep.
You need to find people who understand the esports industry locally, because every single different esport title / game for Ali or each region has its own idiosyncrasies and qualities that make it really unique. For instance, in India, what the influencers that are popular are the influencers that are really competitively successful. Whereas in NA, that's not necessarily always as important, or other regions for that matter. It's just like Indian fans really like watching people win. That's what they really care about. So it's kind of just like finding and understanding what's popular in different places. So you invest not only in the game itself, but also in staff, and that's also something that I really like about my job. Is you get to create a branch of TSM in another country, and you get to create branches, and you get to recruit staff that you maybe wouldn't have the same qualities to recruit in North America, just by nature of different esport ecosystems and cultural values, things like that.
Well, that kind of brings me into another question. So what made you want to work at TSM/in esports?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd always been really interested in gaming, and it had always been something that I was into. And I just remember like literally the first esport game I ever watched in my life like was that TSM versus Samsung White in like Season 4 Worlds. So I don't even think I'd played or heard of League of Legends at the time. I think I just saw it on YouTube or something like that. And I was like, wow, this is super cool. People are playing video games competitively. I can do that. I cannot do that. But I could help support people who could do that.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's what I decided to do. And I was never sure that I wanted to do esports, honestly. I think a trap a lot of people get into, that I've fallen into as well, especially in high school and college, is you think you have to know what you want to do. Dude, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was deciding between working in politics, being a teacher, being a lawyer. I got a concussion the day before the LSAT, which made the LSAT much harder. But like, if I didn't get that concussion, I might not have gone into esports because I probably would have remembered my name for the LSAT and done better. I mean, I did fine on it, but like, and I might have gone into law school. So like,
okay.
Instead, I don't know. Like, I'm really happy I ended up where I ended up because I really like esports. But I think it's important to like just be open to new possibilities. Like, you don't need to. God, I was so stressed out when I was in college and high school about like sticking to a specific path like I knew I wanted to do, and I just like kind of was open to like different directions, and I think that's super, super important. How did I get it? Sorry, did I answer your question?
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. Well, let's just dive a little bit deeper. So what made you want to switch from law to esports?
I found it. I didn't like it. I worked in two law firms. One of them is a law firm that worked on the Iran deal, which was super cool. That I really liked. The other was, they're both firms based in DC. And didn't like it. Okay. So I decided, and law's a field that if you want to commit to it, you need to make sure you really like it. It's a lot of money. It's a huge investment. And I already had a lot of student debt. So I was like, no, not going to do this. And I thought I'm going to try esports because I've always been interested in esports. I have an opportunity to go to London and work for, like a great organization. Fun fact, actually, my first two applications to TSM, I got rejected. So keep trying, because I applied to TSM 3 times to work, and it wasn't until the third time that I got a job. So don't give up on applying. But yeah, I just said, I'm just going to try it. I'm going to take the risk. Fine. Can always come back to whatever other job I want. So, like I could always go to law school. They're never not looking for people to spend money to go to law school. I just took a chance and it worked out. Well,
were there some skills that you brought over from like working in law to?
Not really. Yeah. Actually, yeah. What's really important honestly, is just like being professional. Being professional goes so long, or it goes so far. Like, being a respectful, responsible human being. Not that I'm always completely responsible, but like just being able to show up every day, do the work, and be open to learning and to be open to trying are like two important things. And like that's something I had done, I guess, a lot in my life. So like I can't and I had knowledge of I had a decent knowledge of contracts. So like when I negotiate contracts or look at contracts, I have like a law background. So I do know a lot about contracts. So that does help me in a lot of situations. I've worked on a lot of international law. So I know a lot. So when expanding into other countries, I do know a couple of things. For instance, like a really big moment at TSM was when PUBG Mobile got banned. I was working at PUBG Mobile, and I remember I think a week earlier I'd emailed Tencent being like, "Is PUBG Mobile gonna get banned?" And they have to say no. Like I knew they would, but like I had a very strong suspicion it would because I had like an okay knowledge of Indian politics and like Sino-Indian relationships or relations. So I just kind of like assumed they would, and that it would get banned, and it did. So like having a knowledge of it is kind of important. Or like, hey, I have a decent knowledge of like the COVID situation in Brazil and India. So I need to make sure that how we're treating players is very conducive to them living and surviving in those areas. So like, I guess my experience with like knowing a lot about like, for instance, like if there was a player who lived in a region of India called Kashmir, which is very politically, it's a very politically controversial area because India and Pakistan both claim sovereignty over it. And I'm like, hey, if we sign a player from Kashmir, that's super cool. I just want to make really sure that like we don't offend anyone. So let's just like sign him and make sure we can bring him over super safely and make sure, because I know COVID was really bad in India at the time.
Yep.
It still's not great. But I was like, let's make sure that we maybe pay more money to get him like a solo car, so he won't endanger any of our players, B, endanger himself, and C, just in general make COVID worse, because TSM took a really hard stance with players to make sure that we weren't negatively impacting any country we were in, or any players, TSM or not. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Well, let's just continue with the law questions, because Lenny asked, as follow-up to the law questions, what made you interested in being a team manager rather than esports law?
I considered esports law, but again, for me, I didn't want to go to law school and didn't want to spend that money. So that's why you don't need you need a law degree to practice law. You don't need any degree to be an esport manager. You need a lot of experience. It's good to, I mean, I don't know if we require bachelor's degrees. I have no idea. My history definitely doesn't help
jobs. Me. Some jobs will require it.
Definitely. And especially like if it's like an industry related job. So like being a manager, I think is a good baseline, because you get to do a little bit of everything and you work a lot with players. If you're doing partnerships or marketing, you probably need a marketing degree. If you're doing, I'm sure our graphic design team and our content team requires something. I don't know what, but I'm sure like
it's more experience than it would be.
Yeah.
And you would get that experience in college, by the way. So,
but I'm sure having like a film degree or something like that, you know,
it doesn't help, but it also doesn't hurt, if that makes sense. Okay. Like we look at more, especially, I'll just talk about content real quick since you're on the topic.
Take it away.
We look at more like your work and what you can do and what you can bring to the table, rather than like how, like if you graduated top of your class in college. Because I know people that graduated top of my class when I went to photo school, they're no longer shooting photos anymore because they just couldn't make it in the industry, or they just changed what they wanted to do with their life. So, and that's just it for the content team. But yeah, but finance, I could see you needing a degree in for sure.
Yeah, like accounting or something like
accounting,
that. Yeah. If you're, I mean, degrees can definitely be helpful. Obviously, college, I believe everyone should have access to like secondary education and everything like that. Yeah. But not everything needs a degree. I chose to not be an esports lawyer because I didn't want to go to law school, was the bottom line. I think esports law, which is essentially just kind of contract law, honestly, it's a bunch of different things. And like, for instance, ESG Law, which is I'm pretty positive the premier esports law firm, they're all great and really professional. We've worked with them. I've worked with them a lot. They're all wonderful people who really know what they're doing. But I just chose not to. If law is really vibes, if you really vibe with law and it clicks with you, and you do want to go to law school, I think it's a really important job. I know that Fnatic had a lawyer on staff as well. So if you want to work at an org, but you want to do law at an org, I do think that's a possibility. I don't think jobs in esport organizations are set in stone. I think a lot of the time I'll be hiring and looking for someone and I'll find someone that fits this niche role that I hadn't really thought of before. And we kind of create something for them to do. So I think there are a lot of ways to combine your passion with esports. It's just about finding the right way to market yourself and the right organization to fit what you want to do.
It's a really good soundbite. Thank you for that.
Anything.
All right. So we're about the halfway mark. So I just want to remind people how to ask their questions. So all you have to do is just go to discord.gg/TSMU. You will ask your questions in the Ask Stream Questions here. And then you can either hop in the mic check and be able to have your voice on the show, or you can ask a text question in the Ask Stream Questions here. With that, let's move on to another question. I'm assuming Gavin may know you because this question seems... his question is managing players in esports similar to managing artists in music?
I don't know.
You don't know? I don't know if you've been...
Do I know Gavin? I don't. If I know you, Gavin, I apologize. I know one Gavin who I went to high school with.
Well, did you ever manage artists in the music?
I know Gavin Newsom just re-won that election. Have I ever managed artists before?
Yeah.
I've managed influencers. I've never managed artists in music before.
Okay.
Unless I have, and I don't remember.
I got you. I would assume it's pretty similar though to players because you gotta make sure.
Yeah. They can be divas. They can be really chill.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do get diva players. Like that's just life. I thankfully have got to work with a lot of really cool, down to earth players.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone's experience is like that. I'm assuming it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I would assume it's pretty similar because just to let you guys know, I actually came kind of from the music industry. So, artists are they're just basically just influencers and brands at the end of the day. It's just like esports players. They're just brands. And so you need to make sure that they have everything that they need, especially when they're going to go on tour. So just be just going to a venue or not venue, but just going to a tournament. It's basically the same thing. Make sure they have everything that they need. Obviously you need a day-to-day manager, making sure that the players are happy. And you also have to make sure, especially if they're working with record labels, you have to make sure the record label's happy as well as the band's happy, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of similarities, especially coming in. I saw a lot of similarities between the music industry and the esports industry. But we can go on to the next question.
Sorry, I couldn't. That was a great answer. No, you answered that question really well, actually.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because a lot of people don't know that I actually came from the music industry because my brand is Wheels, so Wheels is in esports. So, but anyway, Caps LCK asks, what do you look for in players when trying to pick them up?
How good they are, their personalities, their commitment to growing and becoming champions. Their ability to take direction, and their social following. That's really it. I know that's super simple, but yeah, I can give a more artistic answer if you want. When I see a player who has this spark or drive that I think is outstanding, unique in some way, or they have some unnameable, uncharacterizable, I don't know if that's a word, quality, characterizable probably is a word, that I can identify or get from them. And I have experienced players who I think have that drive and just bring something special. That's definitely really important to signing a player. But if you're, one of the best players at your game in your region / the world, if you're really down to earth and really cool, if you're really nice and you get along well with people, because your personality is really important.
Yeah.
And you have good social followers and you're committed to growing and working hard, then that's the perfect player in my mind. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That goes for any, even if you're looking for a job, even especially as long as you're down to earth, you want to make sure you're the best in the field, but you want to make sure people will want to work with you, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. No matter how big or important you are, something I encourage amongst and not only myself, but my boss encourages for me is always give really open feedback. And that's something I also encourage amongst other people who players / staff included who I manage, is we're always open to feedback, because you are I've made mistakes at my job. And everyone does. And the reason you hire people really often isn't to just say yes to you, but it's because you find something, they have something to add in their own personal individual insight to a situation. And it's important to listen to people and trust your own hires a lot. I've been given trust, and it's important then to trust people. So I was going somewhere with this. So essentially, you're looking for people who are reliable and good at the end of it. Reliable, good, and respectful. Where I was going, I remember now. Where I was going with this was that no matter how good you are, you need to be respectful of other people, of their time, and also of who they are, and you need to, and you need to be good are two really important things.
Yeah, especially like coming into like, I mean, I don't even know if you would consider TSM a corporate, but like, it's a huge company. We have like over 100 employees. So like, I mean, especially on the content team, we're growing. And then especially on the manager side, you guys are growing as well. So, I mean, like you have so many new like voices and stuff, but luckily all those guys will bring their own experiences, and then everyone it works out in the end.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go on to another question from Caps Lock. Do you see browser games ever being added to esports?
Yeah, I really hate when people gate esports. If it's competitive and people want to play it, it's esports. Bottom line, that like anything can be esports. I think. Yeah, the best esports have a very low skill floor and a very high skill ceiling. If you play a game that you like and you can be competitive with people, it's an esport. Like Pong has been an esport. And Pac-Man has been an esport. So like, yeah, anything's an esport. I hate when people shame certain games. Like mobile can get shamed sometimes because it's on your phone. But some of the best, most passionate players I've ever worked with are mobile players. The fans are crazy. It's really amazing. So I don't like gatekeeping in general, but particularly in esports.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I mean, I don't want to say as long as it's competitive, but I mean, basically, you are correct when you say anything can be in esport. I mean, as long as like developers are there, as long as there's like their passionate fan base. Actually, what I was going to get at is, especially in the mobile industry or the mobile, like I don't, because me living in North America, like I only watch like, NA and EU stuff. But like when you go look at their viewership and their engagements and stuff, it is crazy how many people like our PUBG team, for example, would get millions of views on YouTube. And I'm just like, what? How is this possible?
Yeah. In Brazil and India, I found like the most passionate fans. These are, and the most passionate players too. And like I brought up earlier, like even their families are incredibly passionate. And you get some of the most passionate staff too. Kai, as I see you, and we have a staff member in chat who's absolutely amazing. But everyone, I remember a long time ago there was a question of like, is mobile esports real esports? And it absolutely is. I mean, full stop, period, exclamation point. It's these fans are so unbelievably passionate, and these players are so unbelievably passionate. I mean, working, more than 8 hours a day. I can tell you how many times we have to tell players and staff to take days off. I'm like, hey, you need to take a break. They're like, I know I do, but like I am so passionate about this game and this industry, and like I want to be a champion. So like the drives that exist in these players are unlike anything I've seen, and the drives in these fans to support these players is equally bright.
Yeah, I was going to say work-life balance is definitely huge, especially when it comes to like, especially managing players, because you're managing players all over the world, right? So let's talk about that real quick. What is your work-life balance when it comes to this?
It used to be really bad. TSM as an organization has really encouraged me and other staff to take time off and to make sure that they have a really positive work-life balance. And I don't think a lot of companies can say that. I know I try really hard to make sure people can take enough time off, because esports, if you're going to work in it, it's a really busy industry. Like there's no way to get around that. I really hope the industry gets better in balancing work life, in finding a balance between work and life. But it's not. I'm going to be totally honest. It's not great, the work life balance. But I know at TSM, for instance, we're trying to make that better.
Yeah.
And like I know I myself am trying to be an agent of that as well, making sure that people can take time off, and making sure that you feel comfortable taking time off from your bosses. I felt guilty taking time off before, and I've had bosses say, at TSM say, you shouldn't feel guilty. Like you deserve time off always. Don't be afraid to take it. You should take time off. So as a company, I think TSM is really great in encouraging a positive work-life balance. But I think in esports as a whole, it's not good. And the industry definitely has room to grow there, as does most, because, well, I'm not going to make a statement about capitalism, but I want to.
Yeah, let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, we can go on to the next question. Leanne asked, are there any major differences or things to consider when managing a mobile game or mobile gaming team versus a team for a non-mobile game? As in like PC, mobile.
Yeah. PC or console.
Yeah.
Mobile specific. Yeah, there are a ton of mobile specific things. There are streaming differences between like what platform players like to stream on. There are obviously device differences. Even the smaller medium of a PC versus a phone means that players need to require and prioritize different things. It's not easy for a player, for instance, to transition from League of Legends to Wild Rift. Mobile as a market and as a medium is much more accessible than PCs. That's one of my favorite things about it. Is phones are really cheap in general. You can run Free Fire or Battlegrounds Mobile India or Wild Rift on a cheap device, and that allows fans to connect with the games and the players and the competitive scene much more easily than PC. And I mean, I love PC games. I play a good amount of League of Legends, but the grassroots nature of mobile games is one of the things that makes me really love it. And that's why it's so much more prevalent in some countries that have a larger wealth disparity, or just a larger population of lower income. There's no way to phrase that in a positive way.
Right.
But yeah, it allows for anyone. I mean, the ultimate thing about esports is that if you are a fan of a traditional sport, I mean, which I am, but like I don't play hockey or tennis or soccer every single day. Those are my favorite, by the way. But I play esports, or I play video games that are esports a lot. And at the end of the day, the individual is able to connect with whatever esport they're playing, esport title they're playing, to a larger degree than I think a lot of traditional athletes can. So when you take that to the extreme, I think is where you find mobile, where players from all over the world, regardless of your socioeconomic background, have a much larger availability to play these titles, connect with competitive players, and potentially even become one themselves. And that's why it's so amazing and impactful when you can take someone from a small town or village and you can help change their future and the future of their family. But here's the important part. It's not because we chose to do it. It's because that player absolutely, like, you get to earn your future in growing. Like there's no, like, the first thing I tell players when I onboard them, and it's not, I mean, I guess you could say it's rehearsed, but it's rehearsed because it's so important and true, and people don't hear this enough, is that they earned their spot. Yeah. And like, that's what I love about mobile and it's true for PCs as well. I'm not trying to disparage like PC esports, because they're wonderful and amazing too, but you earn your spot, and that makes me really happy.
Well, I mean, for the mobile especially, like, these developers are optimizing it for not just one device. They're optimizing it for a ton of devices. Even older phones can run some of these games. And like, obviously people have older phones sometimes, but PCs, you have to make sure you keep up with the parts and everything like that.
Can I just point out someone in the chat who just said you're from Southeast Asia and you're glad esports is booming? Yeah, esports in Southeast Asia is absolutely awesome. Oh, yeah. Like, it's so cool. I watched Wild Rift and some Mobile Legends Bang Bang in like Philippines and Vietnam, and it's super cool. So I'm a huge fan of esports all around the world. Like, I want every country everywhere to play esports because I think it's so cool. And the coolest thing is that each country has their own version of esports. Like, their players are a little different. the fans are a little different, and I think that's so cool. So Southeast Asia is awesome. Brazil is awesome. India is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you are saying it correct. So let's. I think this kind of transitions to my another question. This is from Tax Evasion. They ask.
I'm not involved in that.
What?
Tax
evasion. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
For Wheels, you got to move a little faster than that.
I'm sorry. It's been a long day, long week. So you mentioned that you were trying to help with TSM and the international growth. How does the process vary by region, say from Southeast Asia to Europe, Southeast Asia, or South Asia, Southeast Asia, like the difference between it, and what strategies transfer smoothly across the regions, and which ones do you think need adjustments?
The best strategy to expand we found is finding someone we really, really, really trust who's really, really good to help us expand that knows their region. Because at the end of the day, I don't know the Indian or Brazilian esports scene as well as someone who's worked there. So for instance, in Brazil, we have a general manager whose name is Kaysera, who is infinitely, he's like the best hire I think that like we've ever made. He's along with our Indian GM, who's also amazing. Mm-hmm. It's hiring people we trust to help us build out this new branch. It's treating every new region with respect and making sure that they know they're not TS. It's really important to me to make sure that in India or Brazil, players don't think that they're just TSM Brazil or just TSM India. No, they're just TSM. There's just because they're from a different country doesn't change how we view them, the attention we want to give them, or anything like that. So the most important thing for me is finding someone I really trust on the ground. You just said that because I'm here. I mean, I want a good review from you guys. I'm not gonna lie. No. But things do vary in region to region. For instance, the bureaucratic laws of Brazil have been really difficult for us to get around and to learn. So there are difficulties as well. Different countries have different laws for international entities and organizations. So that's a really big part of things that differs. Different cultures as well, and understanding different scenes and how prevalent English is in those regions. Thankfully, English is really prevalent in Brazil and in India. I think Brazil a little more so than India. I don't speak Portuguese and I don't speak Hindi. My Arabic was fluent, but is more light conversational now. So I would have to brush up on it before doing a lot of business in Arabic. But the most important thing is finding someone you trust and finding someone who knows what they're doing, who's well connected, who is responsible, who you can work with to build out a brand.
Oh, there you go. From what I'm hearing, excuse me, you've mentioned this a few times.
You made me cough too.
I know. I apologize. I mean, we've just been talking for a minute. From what it seems like, you like working with teams rather than just yourself. In a team environment. Yeah, I do. Players are amazing, and they also can drive you crazy, but it's also really amazing, and that's part of what's so great. There is no job in esports, and there's no esport org that does everything alone. Everything is really important. As I think is like one of the first things I said on here was like from finance to like our competitive players to the staff that manage them, everything is important. So building a well-balanced team that is positive, is respectful, and and having people that are smarter than you too is really important as well. Like I am by no means the smartest person on in TSM Mobile, probably quite the opposite. And like having someone who you can learn from as well is really important. I've like made a lot of mistakes in esports, and like I've had people to help teach me from those mistakes. So that's also really important. I do like working with teams. Working with myself would get boring after a while because I can't do that much on my own. I mean, I can do on my own what I can do, but it's not everything. Well, speaking of mistakes, let me ask, what was the toughest situation in your career as a team manager that you've had to deal with so far, and how did you manage to overcome those difficulties?
Well, I'm going to be totally honest that probably the hardest things, I'm probably actually not allowed to talk. I'm just going to be straight up with you on that.
All right.
But like The hardest things I can talk about are probably related to when like the hardest thing is letting go of people or having to kick a player from a team is really really difficult. Um, Even if like they were huge problem players, there's something. Like as a manager, it's really important to find empathy and a connection with everyone. So it's important to make those connections. So letting go of anyone is difficult. That's really hard. Personally, I've made like a wide range of mistakes from like having a contract with a typo, which is like a small mistake, but that actually can have really large ramifications. To which in that case, I just reached out and said, "Hey, I made a mistake. We're going to send you a new contract." To yeah, Kai's is a part of the Brazilian management. Maybe we'll talk to him one day. You'll learn so much from him if he ever does. He's beautiful. I've mismanaged players before. Where like I've responded to a situation incorrectly, whether it's like a player dispute or a player's upset about something or another. At the end of the day, you're also working with humans, and working with humans and connecting with humans and making sure that you manage humans correctly is not an easy thing to do. And I have certainly made that mistake. So like the best, I guess, like I can't get. I'm sorry, like I can't give you a really specific example.
That's fine.
I would say the best specific example I can give you was what I spoke about earlier when I was on Fnatic. I offboarded the #1 ranked player in the world from Fnatic because there were a lot of clashing personalities, and something that's really important to me is a very positive team environment. I think you could still argue that me making that decision was the wrong decision. I think that's a totally valid thing to argue, and I still sometimes think about it. I think that team went on to ended up winning like maybe placing second in the world or something like that year. I don't remember. I'm sure Sleuths could look it up and figure it out. But yeah, I still think about that. So at the end of the day, you have to make individual decisions that affects people's lives. And I've made mistakes related to that. And it's impossible not to. The most important, what I tell like people I manage, whether it's like staff or players, is that there's nothing wrong with making a mistake as long as you learn from it and you try to not make that mistake again. Then it's not a mistake or a failure. It's just a learning experience. And sometimes learning experiences are more expensive than others. But as long as you learn from it, it's not entirely negative.
Yeah, that is true. So let's go on to another question. Tax evasion's coming back for another question.
What's up, tax evasion?
In the West, there's a negative stigma about mobile gaming, probably holds it back from the success it finds elsewhere in the world. How have you worked and tried to break down or work past those ideas and try to grow?
I think anyone knows in the US, if you speak to your family about esports, there is a stigma. Honestly, I don't know how much that stigma, like in other regions, what people I speak to are pretty much all people in the esports industry. I'm sure someone like Kai's could speak a lot more to like how the average person in their region views esports and mobile esports. In NA specifically, though, what I can tell you is that there definitely is a stigma. Each region is better at certain titles than others. In NA, the most popular titles the genres that NA is best at are FPSs, and fighting games are much more popular. I think that relates to U.S. culture. Mm-hmm. Although NA is not just the United States, obviously also Canada and Mexico, and there are great Canadian and great Mexican players. But generally in NA, we tend to be better at those two genres and things like MOBAs because there's a tendency in NA to view things like animation as childish, as fantasy as childish, and it really comes down to gatekeeping and culture. And we just view mobile games as less serious, less adult, which is obviously not the case. But I'm very I think they're being slowly more accepted. Things like Call of Duty Mobile are mobile esports that are becoming more mainstream. Clash Royale esports is it's gone under a lot of there've been a lot of changes to the format, and I actually haven't kept up with it much. Brawl Stars is also a great esport. Mm-hmm. So I think that's changing, but I think it's more of a cultural thing that needs to happen, and it also comes down to the player base as well. I think like for instance, when people ask like why is NA League not as good as like EU League or something, and it comes down to player base. Mobile player base is growing a lot. I think in 3 to 5 years, mobile will eclipse PC. You can quote me on that. Yeah, so I think give it time and the stigma will change.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely been an issue. Thankfully, if you're working in the industry, if someone is intelligent, they know not to underestimate esports. If they're intelligent or informed, they know not to underestimate esports and to treat it seriously.
I mean, that's always good to know. So Tax Evasion has another question.
Yeah.
A massive recent case that I probably don't fully understand the repercussions of is the Apple versus Epic Games suit. Do you anticipate any massive shockwaves in the mobile industry as a result, and how would you stay prepared for massive changes like this, or maybe some other massive new news?
Yeah, I mean, so tech absolutely does impact esports. For instance, when TikTok got banned in India, I was like, ooh, PUBG Mobile is probably going to get banned. So that's a really clear example. What did we do to prepare for it? What did I do to prepare for it? Not as much as I should have, I can tell you that. But pretty much all you can do is create backup plans. When you invest in something, what we found is, and what I've been told, and like a lesson I've learned mostly from others, is it's not good to invest in the middle. You either don't invest or you go big. Mm-hmm. And you still kind of have to go big regardless. So with Apple and Epic, for instance, I think it could be an issue for mobile titles. If esports began as a way for, at least from the developer side, to advertise for your game, essentially, is what it began as. And if there is no game, there is no esports. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a possibility. Yeah. What can you do to prepare for it? Create your own software of smartphones and allow developers to sell their games on that, I guess. I'm sorry, I don't know if I have a complete answer to your question because I genuinely have no idea. I don't think there's much. At the end of the day, we are at the mercy of some companies. We're at the mercy of like countries as well. If India and Brazil decided to ban esports tomorrow, that would be a really bad day for me, and I don't think there's anything I can do about it. I have zero impact on the Brazilian or Indian governments, as I really tried with PUBG Mobile. And it did get unbanned, so maybe who knows. But yeah, there's not much you can do. You're at the mercy of developers a lot of the time, honestly.
Well, I mean, you also are a history major as well. So, I mean, the only reason why you study history is so it doesn't repeat itself. So I'm assuming all this stuff that's happening, especially with the PUBG mobile stuff in India, it probably will help in the future.
Yes, I think it will. Having good experiences, and having experience with knowing if something with PUBG Mobile happened again, or I thought a game would get banned, would I do it differently? Definitely. So I do think there are things that I have learned about it. Also, totally separate topic. It is super important to know history to not repeat itself. I also think that there's this really common idea in the history field that the only knowledge that's important is knowledge that will help us make decisions in the future. The history, what's being studied a lot more now is the study of, instead of old rich dead white guys, it's actually, and important political figures, it's what did the average person do? I think knowledge for knowledge's sake is really important, and just having knowledge of humanity and the world in general is important and has its own intrinsic value. That's my side rant. Ask me how I really feel about it, though. Yeah, knowing history about tech and stuff is important. You look at the Microsoft antitrust case in the 90s, for instance, is still relevant today, and it's always something we have to look out for. It's a little above my pay grade, honestly, though.
Yeah, it's above our most of our pay grades, to tell you the truth. All right, so let's go on. Just a couple more questions left, and then
sure.
We'll get out of here. Remy asks, let's quickly imagine a situation within a team. You know that you have an extremely talented player in your team that has very good potential to achieve everything in esports, but he lacks the motivation and it strongly affects his gameplay. You also know that there is another player on your bench that is slightly less skilled, but has a lot of motivation and willing to show off on the stage. What would you do in this situation? Would you try to substitute, fix motivation issues on your main player, or look for a different solution?
Well, something like this wouldn't develop instantly. It happens over time. Hopefully, also we had some knowledge about this from the coach, the player itself, or when we were scouting. If you want me to treat your situation like it's in a vacuum, I can do that, but I'm going to think about it as if it's like actually happening. So realistically, I would have had some knowledge. For instance, let's say that that is a good it is a really good question. I'm gonna pretend that this is in Brazil, and we have a Wild Rift player. As a disclaimer, this isn't a situation ongoing. Everyone on a Wild Rift team is amazing and incredibly motivated and hardworking. And they are the best team in Brazil and will be the best team in Brazil. Anyway, question. I remember it. What I would do in that situation is I probably would be informed about this by the player himself, him or herself, our general manager, Kaisera, or our coach, or other local managers on the ground because we have a lot of staff. The first thing I would do is probably ask them how they would want to handle it and what they think is best, because they probably live with that player and know him or her better than I do. I'd ask how serious it was. Is this a long-term issue? This has been happening for a while. If it's impacting practice and it's really bad, the first thing we would do is obviously try to get them remotivated, ask if they need some time off, stuff like that. If it's unsalvageable and the player genuinely just doesn't want to play anymore, then absolutely, I would substitute that player, because it's not fair to that player who might have other things they want to do. And it's not fair to the rest of his teammates also, who might have that drive to win. As for the player who is on the bench, if he or she isn't as good as the starting player, if we have a substitute, it's because they have potential to be outstanding or amazing. They have a quality that makes us want to have them be a sub. We're not just going to have a sub for a sub's sake. So we would start working with them and bringing them up. And if we thought neither player was up to it, we would find a new player from the outside. Is probably how I'd answer that question. Kais, feel free to disagree with me if that's not correct.
Kais is required to agree with you at this very moment.
Exactly, very true. Is it because we don't have time?
No. I mean, we'll let the chat decide. But I do have one more question for you.
All right, take it away.
It's a really good one.
All right.
What would your one advice be to try to get in? Or what would your advice be to become a manager in esports?
What would my advice be? Well, definitely apply. The thing about esports is it's really hard to break into and then really easy to stay in. It is the deal with the esports industry. That's not helpful advice. I understand that. If anything, it's the opposite. That sucks. I would say do anything you can in esports. That's really important. Coming to something like this and getting a connection, if you reach out to me and we're like, hey, Joe, I saw your Q&A, blah, blah, blah. I'll probably be a little more open to you, because I do get a billion LinkedIn messages, as I'm sure you do too, Wheels. And I answer some people and sometimes I don't have the time. That's just life, honestly. Looking for connections are probably the best way to get into esports. I would look for a connection the best way I can. I got rejected from TSM twice before I applied with Fnatic work experience. So I don't think I would have gotten that job had I not had work experience from Fnatic. So the best thing you can do is just anything you can to break into it. That's not a great answer. So try to find a connection. Come to things like this. Participate in the TSM University mentor program, because you're going to be able to make those connections and get even more lessons from industry specialists like myself, like Wheels, or the myriad of other incredibly talented men and women who work at TSM. There you go, Ellie.
Well, would you say you need people skills to be a manager?
Yes. Or the willingness to develop those skills.
Okay.
Because I'm always working on my skills. They're still not perfect. But yeah, a willingness to learn is important. There are some. It also depends on what you want to do. If you want to do esports law, then I would not take any advice I just said and instead work on going to the best damn law school. Sorry, the best darn law school you could get into, and then applying to ESG law is what I would do if I wanted to be an esports lawyer. If I wanted to be in esports content? Well, Wheels can answer that better than me, but what I would do if I wanted to do content is probably start editing and doing videos on my own time and creating a portfolio. So I had a portfolio and could maybe get recognized, which kind of sucks because as an industry, I think art is not fair to the artist in general. But that is what it is. For marketing, I'd say get a marketing degree and then apply and try to get some partnership and sales experience. If not in esports, in an esport adjacent industry like gaming, tech, something like that. Does that, if you, I could try to give you like a better answer per industry, but I think that's the best.
I don't think we have enough time to go through each individual industry that you have been a part of.
I haven't been a part of all of those. I definitely can't do content.
It's okay.
Except for this grade A content I'm putting out right now.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I can give you a video. You can cut it down easily. Anyone can edit content.
That's true. I can click
Would it
edit
be
on my
entertaining?
iPhone and then crop
I don't know.
match.
You never know.
Yeah.
But just like you should say, both you and I are part of the mentorship that is coming up here soon. I'm not 100% sure when those applications are due by, but if you join the TSMU Discord, there is an announcement about it. Myself and Joe and a few others from the TSM FTX team is going to be a part of the mentorship. It's going to be a great opportunity. I'm excited about it. Are you excited about it, Joe?
I'm so excited, and anyone who wants to get into esports should also be excited about it because it's going to be a great thing where you can learn from people like me and much smarter than me, which is the other 7 people involved in it. By the way, can I read Kaisera's typed answer to that question because it was a really good answer?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Kaisera said TBH, which means to be honest, comma, to be a manager in esports requires only 2 things other than opportunity, and opportunity is by far the most important. Talent to be a leader by passion and understanding. You never know, and to understand that you never know enough, basically. Which, to paraphrase, it's to have passion for esports and to be open to knowing that you're not as knowledgeable as you think you are, and that you're open to learning. I think it's a great answer by Kaisera. And I think he's 100% correct.
Awesome. Well, that's a great place to end it on. That was amazing, Joe. Thank you so much for coming on.
Dude, you're so beautiful.
Thanks, man. We have to hang out sometime. Anyway, just let everyone know, our next episode is going to be happening next week on September 22nd at 5 p.m. with special guest Athena, who is a part of our professional Valorant team, or women's team on the TSM FTX side. Also, be sure to be following the channels just so you can just stay connected. And also, go ahead and just join the TSMU Discord. There's great resources in there. There's a very active community. I pop in there from time to time. I lurk more than I talk. But anyway, so that's going to be it for me. Joe, any final thoughts, comments, concerns?
Sign up for the TSM mentorship program. Root for TSM Brazil. Root for TSM India. And stay safe. Get vaccinated.
Awesome.
Am I allowed? Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds good to me, Joe. All right, let's go ahead and end it there. We'll see you guys next time. See ya.
If I get this series canceled, I'm sorry.